Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning if you happen to be out in the West Coast or Mountain Time Zone. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar here at TimeSolv, the place where you get your monthly tips and tricks to get the most out of your account. This is Scott Clayson. I'm the marketing director here at TimeSolv. We're going to wait another minute or so. Let me make sure everybody gets settled in. I see several people who are regular attendees. So you know the drill. You have about another minute or so to grab that last cup of coffee, can of soda, bottle of water, whatever the case may be, and then we'll get going. So we'll see you back here in about another minute or so. All right, it looks like everyone who plans on attending is here. I haven't seen any new faces jump in here in the last several seconds. So we will go ahead and get started. So yes, welcome once again to the September Wednesday webinar here at TimeSolv. I'm Scott Clayson, and this is the place where I will review 3 or 4, sometimes 5 different features within the TimeSolv application that are usually either new features that have just been released in the TimeSolv that you may not be aware of, or oldie but goodie type of features that perhaps you learned at one point in time, or maybe weren't even aware of when you first came on board with TimeSolv, and hopefully went through your training to get up to speed and could be useful for you. So we always want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to learn about every feature that TimeSolv has, because there might be some stuff that you weren't even aware of that you could do with our system to help make your business and your firm more efficient, more profitable, which is really the whole goal here at TimeSolv. As I've mentioned to many of the people who have been on this webinar before, what I basically do is take the tip of the week topics that go out usually every Monday, sometimes it's on Tuesdays. Take those and consolidate them down into roughly a 45-minute to an hour webinar every month. And we take our previous 3 or 4 weeks worth of Wednesday tip of the weeks and turn that into our webinar. So that's what we will be doing a mixture of here today. Some of these items were not specifically tip of the week items, and some were. I anticipate this might be a little over 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I think at the most, with the topics we're going to cover today. So it won't be an extremely long webinar. As always, everyone is on mute. You do have the opportunity to use the question and answer icon you should be seeing at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Have some patience. I may not get to your question immediately after you ask it, but I do make sure I address every question that I can during the time that we have together. And as always, I reserve the right to admit to you that I don't know the answer. And I will get the answer, though, for you from our support and product staff as needed if I can't answer it here on the webinar. And then in the email follow-up that I will send to everybody, that includes a link to rewatch the webinar at your own convenience. I will include any answers to questions I couldn't resolve here on the webinar. So that is all of our preliminary sort of housekeeping items. So let's dive into our topics for today. All right, our 4 items we're going to talk about are a mixture of new things that were just released, along with previous features that have not been out terribly long, that I do want to, I know I've talked about before on a Wednesday webinar, but it's been a while. So first is an exciting, I think, new feature that we have released within the last month, and that is the ability to run a credit card charge as a one-off type of activity right in TimeSolv and right from the payments page. And I will show you how to do that. Very excited about the ease and ability now. You can always do that over in the TimeSolv Pay portal, but now we've built that right into the payments area of TimeSolv. So a very cool way to accept payment via credit card quickly to make sure that invoice is allocated as paid. Then our next topic is going to be around the time and expense analytics dashboards that we built out earlier this year. I think we released it sometime in the early spring, if I recall. But just want to refresh everyone's memory on where it is and what you can do with it and how it can be impactful in making decisions around the health of your firm, or at least see the health of your firm so you can make decisions off of that. Then third, I do want to revisit, and this was a tip of the week a couple of weeks ago, the zero AR process that we talked a lot about at the first part of 2021, but I think it's worth revisiting, especially as we're getting into the latter half of the year here. And as a lot of firms think about how they may want to change or modify their processes and make a clean start of it in 2022. I can't believe I'm saying 2022. That just, I can't believe we're already so close to the end of the year. Creating and implementing the zero AR process that is available in TimeSolv is a process that I think every firm should take a serious look at. And we'll talk a little bit more during the section about how impactful it could be on your firm's bottom line. Then the last topic we have is something that was just released actually, I think last night in TimeSolv. And that is the ability now when you generate a statement to preview that statement similar to the way that you can preview an invoice. So we'll walk through that quickly as well. So that is what's on the agenda here today. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started. And we'll start with the location where you can run a one-time credit card charge. Now, this is making the assumption that you already have a TimeSolv Pay account or a LawPay account that are integrated into TimeSolv. You do have to have one of those two payment processing portals, if you will, set up and integrated with TimeSolv. So again, just a quick review of where that happened under payments and settings. And over here on bank accounts is where you would have your setup bank accounts, and then you could hook them up to either LawPay or your TimeSolv Pay. TimeSolv Pay is even more built in, as we know, to TimeSolv, obviously. This is the location where you, if you haven't signed up yet, where you can start your application process right here on this tab. And this is going to show you that I have this operating account and this trust account hooked up to my TimeSolv Pay account. And you can do the same thing with LawPay. So we're making the assumption that that is in place and you're using one of those two processors. You can now run a payment by actually running the credit card that is given to you by your client at the time. So say you're on the phone with a client. I'm gonna go to my sent invoice screen, and you can see I have 3 invoices here that have not been paid. They still have a balance on them. And say that my Orange Ball client, they call in and they want to go ahead and pay the invoice. So we're going to run over here to this currency icon and click on it. That takes us to our payment page here, where it's already pre-populating the client and the matter. And the payment method here now, this is the location where you're going to choose the credit card single charge to run a payment right now. So once I click on that, you can see it says save and charge. It's already pre-populated with the amount of the invoice here. So we're going to hit save and charge, and you will have now a screen that pops up that shows that you're charging for this amount because that's the amount that you have specifically placed in that field. And then you just take the information necessary for the card from your client, the name that's on the card, all, this is stuff you can do over the phone. It's not storing this information like the other method we'll show in just a little bit of zero AR. So it's not storing this anywhere. It is just a one-time charge, something that you can do over on the LawPay portal site and the TimeSolv Pay portal, but you can do it right here now. So you just put in the information you need, the billing information that is required, hit submit, and it'll record that payment and allocate that payment to the invoice. And so the invoice will be marked as paid. Great, fast way to accept payment. And this is something a lot of people asked for, especially when we rolled out TimeSolv Pay, of being able to build this right into the application. So we have now made this available. And again, the key thing is under payment method, choosing credit card, single charge. Same thing with ACH. You can do the same thing with ACH, which essentially is just an electronic check. It would just look slightly different in that you're going to be asked to provide the bank account and routing number information. Any questions on that, on the ability now to run single charges? So I am hearing that they don't have the option for credit card single charge, even though you're connected to LawPay. Let me double check on that. I had an understanding that it was with LawPay, but perhaps it's just TimeSolv Pay. So good question. I will follow that up in the email that I send out after the webinar. Thank you for that. I was under the impression that it was both, but that may not be the case. Okay. Any other questions about single charge for credit card? Okay. I'll do the awkward silence to let people think and type if they need to. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. For those of you that have been on these webinars frequently over the years, that's one thing as I used to be a school teacher. And one of the things that I was taught actually, and I like this technique, is think about how many times somebody will be speaking and they'll say, does anybody have any questions? And they might give a pause of about 5 seconds and then they'll continue on. So it's always good to put give a good 15, 20 seconds in there to let somebody think, do I have a question? So that's one of the things I like to do. The question is the ACH charge processed by the client when they are ready to pay. This would be, and I believe what you're asking is, this isn't something that the client is doing. This is something you are doing as the, for your customer. So they would be providing you the ACH information. If you would like the client themselves to put in their information for payment, then that's where the client portal that we have would come into play, in which when you send out the invoice, there would be a link in the email that is sent for them to access a client portal and submit their payment information themselves. So it's important to note that what I'm discussing here, this single charge, is you are getting this payment information from the client in some fashion. My vision for a lot of you is probably that you'd be taking this perhaps over the phone rather than email. So that's the place where you could do this now. Okay, let's move on. And, I am going to flip-flop the topics here now that we're talking about payment. So I was going to talk about our performance analytics, but I think it's logical to step right into that zero AR process, since that is payment related as well. The zero AR process is one that I do know for a fact can be used whether you are using LawPay or TimeSolv Pay as your credit processor. And really, it's a very easy multi-step process here. And the idea is, and as I've talked about this many times before, is to collect the payment information for your client before you start your work with the client. Make that part of your intake process when you have a new client. We even have out, I know in some locations where we have templates where you could use to include information to acquire a credit card number, and basically it's a credit card authorization form. I'm sure a lot of us, I know I've filled out many of them over the years where I am doing asking for services for some company, and they're going to charge me at some point, and they ask for a credit card authorization form so they can run payment. It's the exact same thing. Collect the payment information up front, and then as important is providing the method and time, in the timeliness in which you're going to charge for an invoice. In other words, we have firms that would do this using TimeSolv. They will communicate right up front the fee arrangement with their client that we give you 5 business days after we send our invoices for you to claim any disputes. If we don't have any disputes from you in those 5 business days, then we are going to run payment for that invoice automatically. And so this firm sends out invoices on the 5th and the 20th, I believe, of every month. They invoice twice a month. They then collect payment on the 10th and the 25th every month. Creates a very reliable revenue stream, as you can imagine. Their collection rate, as a result, is 97+% on their invoices. The only time they have issues is when a credit card may have expired, and so the payment fails. So how do you do that in TimeSolv in a speedy, efficient way? Step 1, when you collect that payment information, store it in TimeSolv. It's actually being stored with the payment processor you use, either LawPay or TimeSolv Pay. You can do it either at the client level here. So I'm going to click on my client, Amir. And then under this payment settings tab, you can see I've already entered payment information for Amir. I already have it on file. You can also do it if you need to at the specific matter level. You can go to payment settings here as well and enter a different credit card. Now, it'd probably be a pretty rare case in which you would have a different payment method at the matter level than the client level, but that option is available. You do also, if you notice when I was looking at the matter level, you can enter both credit card or bank account information. I know we've had a lot of people tell us, hey, I'm always billing companies, not individuals, and a lot of companies don't necessarily have a credit card that they have on file. No, but they absolutely would be able to provide you ACH information that you could keep on file. I know that's how TimeSolv does it now. When I contract with a vendor and they need payment information, we provide our ACH banking information. We don't do a credit card. So every company would at the very least, I think, be more than happy to provide their ACH banking information. Either way, this is where you store it, at the payment settings level here. Okay, then we're going to make the assumption that you have gone ahead and made that fee arrangement that you're going to charge, let's say 5, 10, whatever number of business days after you send the invoice. And this is no different from my utility bill, for example. My gas bill I get here in Minnesota, they have my payment information on file, and I get the invoice, but if I don't say anything to them, they're gonna bill me on the due date that they have established, unless I raise a stink about it. And that's just, it's just how I've been doing it for years and years and years with my utilities. This is really no different. So one way you can make sure that they are aware of when you're going to charge is in the client settings, on the invoice settings here tab. This is where you can put in your invoice narratives. And in that invoice email message, you can go ahead and put in that language, and I already have it in here. If there are no objections to this invoice, we will run payment in 5 working days as per our fee agreement. If your payment method has changed, please contact us. So this is if you have a different credit card, or your credit card may have expired, or so on and so forth. We also, once you run payment, will automatically send out a notification to the client so they know and they get a receipt that this has been paid now. So once you have those in place, then it's very simple. Once you go over to your sent invoice screen, you've sent out your invoices. It's been that 5 working days. Now you want to actually charge for your run the payment after those 5 days. You could go ahead and under the more options here, you can go ahead and only show me invoices in which I have a payment method on file. In this case, it's these three. They've already paid their invoice here. So I can't run it again, but it would simply show you all your invoices that are out there that have that payment method. Saves you time. You can simply select all the invoices that are out there, and then at once you hit charge over here, this green charge icon button, and it's going to run payment on all your invoices at once in batch. There's no other system out there that does this right now that I'm aware of, at least for sure in the legal industry, where you can select literally dozens, even hundreds of invoices. If you have the payment method for all of them on file, you can run payment for them in one click and get paid for all your invoices in one click. And it marks all those invoices as paid. You're done. So think of all the time it takes to chase down payment, whether it's a check, whether it's getting them to give that credit card number for that one-time payment that we just showed earlier. That takes time and effort. And if you're a small firm, that takes away from the running of doing the work you want to do, the legal work or the consulting work, whatever the case may be with your business. So using this methodology cuts down on that just by an extraordinary amount. And like I said, the firms that we know are using this in TimeSolv have a 97% collection rate. We're so excited about this methodology. We even created a zero AR calculator on our website, in which you can put in, like, what is my current collection rate on my invoices? So let's say you collect on 89% of your invoices and 11% never do get collected and paid. How long does it take you on average to collect payment? And how much do you bill on average? And this will show you that at that current rate of 89%, you're really only collecting $13,350, and it's taking you over 2 weeks to collect it. With that zero AR process I just showed you, you're collecting 97% of it. You're only losing out on a couple $100, and you get it right away. Now you can see the difference is what, about actually about $1,200 more per month that you're collecting. Over the course of a year, that's $14,500 almost that you are gaining in revenue by doing nothing more than just changing your process in how you go about collecting. So again, as we're looking towards the end of the year, as we're looking towards new processes to perhaps adopt as 2022 rolls around, this is definitely a process I would highly encourage you to think about using. Any questions on the zero AR process? I just spewed out a lot of information there, I know, at once. Okay, I do get the question that unable to add payment information in payment settings using just LawPay. You want to maybe make sure that you have your settings, your bank accounts properly set up, the ones that you're using with your LawPay account, that you have that actual payment profile. This is where you would actually select LawPay and hook up your LawPay account. So that might be, because I do know for a fact that being able to store the payment information under the clients and matters absolutely can be done by LawPay if you have a LawPay account. In fact, I know firms that the one that I'm using the example of does the 97% collection rate. They are using LawPay. So double check that in your payment and settings area, that you have your bank account hooked up to your LawPay account. If you have any questions on that, or you're unsure, our support people would love to help you with that. Okay. Okay, it sounds like a reply there that there's a ticket request and you're waiting to hear back. If you want to maybe send me a message offline, we can forward that and look into where that ticket's at, depending on what the age of it is. And my email, I believe I have it on the last screen here. I'll actually, let me give it to you here in the in the chat. I'll send it to everybody. In the chat section, it's scott.clayson@timesolv.com, and we will help solve that issue for you. I see where the ticket's at. All right, let's move on and talk about the time and expense analytics that are available to you in your account. Rolled this out, like I said, I think back in the spring. So if we go to our time entry page, kind of our, this is our core where a lot of people do their business here in TimeSolv, especially timekeepers. A lot of them don't really navigate around through much else of TimeSolv. If you notice, there is this grayed out analytics right next to the time entry here. And if we click on that, it is a link, as you can tell. When you click on that analytics, it will bring up loads of information on your different staff members and the time entries that they've done. So let's start from the top. First of all, if you're an admin person and you have permissions, you can see everyone's analytics here, all your timekeepers. Date range by default, it's showing you the current month. If you click on it here, you can see you have options to show just today, the week, last month, this quarter, so on, and you can do a custom date range. So if we go to say last month, I have a little bit more information there. It walks you through the top here, how many hours this person has entered essentially for the month, what their average rate is. So the total of what they've worked, how much of that has been unbilled, how much of that has actually been placed on an invoice. Good snapshot. And then you can, of course, do that and you can see it for a wide range of date options, like I mentioned. This shows the overview, the percentage essentially of billable hours to non-billable hours. You can always set targets, your target billable hours and how you're doing against that. Just quickly to set that target, what is your target billable hours? You come over here to dashboard and to settings. I'm going to open this up in a new page. And this is where you can put your target billable hours for the year. And then you can do it for all your timekeepers under targets and permissions here. If you want to do it for just a quarter, you can, if you'd like. I use 1,600 hours. I believe that is one of the standard targets for billable hours for the year for a lot of law firms. But again, this is where you can see really three things: the target billable hours that you have, and then billable versus non-billable, or excuse me, total hours versus billable hours. Here's your top clients as far as hours go in this date range and what the amounts are. So you can see who your top clients are. And then down in this last row, this is all three of these are comparisons to last year. So you can see for each month, how am I doing year over year in my billable hours, my total hours, and what's been invoiced. So good, a good snapshot to be able to see how each of your timekeepers is doing with their billable hours. Same thing over on the expense side. In my TimeSolv account here, I've done very little in the way of expense entry, so I'm not sure if I will even be able to have anything show here. Let me just see if I can do this year. I may not even have any. Yeah, I don't think I've created any expense entries this year. But this again would show you the expenses entries that have been entered, work in progress, WIP, and what's been billed. And then you would see the same type of things, amount by expense code, which can be important, who your top clients are, you've had to charge expenses to, and so on. And you can see my last year, I don't do much in the way of expense entries in my demo account, but similar type of information that you would see. Okay, questions on the time and expense performance analytics? All right. I should give a longer awkward pause here, shouldn't I? Okay, I don't see any other questions, so let's move on to our last topic of today. And that is the ability to preview statements that you are sending your clients. So let's first go back and review the fact that when you go to either your draft invoice screen or your sent invoice screen for several years now, we've had this preview icon, this little magnifying glass with the plus sign that allows you to, once you click on it, take a look at what the invoice actually looks like. And it'll load up here and you can see it and scroll through it. You could print it. You could even download it, just like you can download it over on this screen. You can pop it into another window if you need to, another tab. If I click on this, it's going to open it up and download it into a new tab. Really convenient in taking a look at your invoices, both after they've been sent and before they've been sent, using this preview icon. You even have the ability, if you come in here to where you're doing some editing of your invoices, you know, in this area, you still have the preview screen here, or the preview icon as well. So you can even preview it when you've gone into the details of the invoice. Super convenient. People I know really like this feature. And one suggestion that I know that we had that we said, yes, this is a good idea, and we got it done and just was released, like I said, I think last night, is when you go under invoices to statements. And again, this is the area where you would send out statements to your clients for generally unpaid invoices. So to remind them that, hey, they still have money outstanding. You may not necessarily resend the invoice, but you want to just send a general statement. So we go under new statements here. I'm going to click all my clients. I'm not going to include any statements that have a zero balance, because that's, from a lot of people, sort of defeats the point. The reason why you're generating statement usually is because there's money still owed you. And it is always convenient to say, hey, they've had no invoice since a certain date. So this is the type of thing where, you know, if they haven't had an invoice, let's say since January 1st, they you know, essentially they haven't, you've done no work for them this entire year, but there's still a balance. You know, you want to generate a statement. So this is always good, convenient to say the no invoice since, because most people, as you know, when you generate a draft invoice, a lot of people will attach their statement of account to that invoice. So it has all the historical information about their previous invoices in the current invoice. If you don't use that, if you've turned that off, then it may be more convenient to, you know, create a statement more recently, like since, like in this case, September 1st. So it's up to you. It depends on how you like to send out your invoices, whether you do or don't include those statement of accounts. But in this case, I'm going to say, yeah, all my clients, and I'm going to hit create, and I'm not going to include zero balances. So these are, what's convenient about this is when you do have these statements generated, it'll tell you when was the last invoice date. So, and then you can always sort by last invoice date. So it's sort of nice to see that my client February Wednesday webinar 2, who has a balance of $4,500, I haven't sent them an invoice in like 3.5 years. And they still owe me this $4,500. So it is kind of convenient, I think, to sort these by last invoice date. You know, just to see, you know, who is your oldest, you know, balance due out there. But the point is now, you can, you know, obviously, to review, you can select all and you can hit send, and it'll send it by the method that is selected over here, either to a printer, to an email address if you have it on file, or auto mail if that is set up. But you can also, before you send it out, here's that preview icon that was not there previously. We just had the download icon to download it as a PDF. Now you can preview it just like you can with your draft invoices and your sent invoices. Okay, so there you go. There's my statement of account. Yeah, so the question kind of came in that it would be convenient to have this on the sent invoices to look at the statement already sent without having, yeah, and you can, as I might have shown you here, on my sent invoices screen, find that sent invoice you want, and you can go ahead and preview it and take a look at it here. In this case, yes, I have my statement of account does get attached. So you could see, hey, the last invoice that I sent in whatever date it was, in this case, you know, July 26th, you can see the statement of account was included there. And you could, again, if you wanted to, you could just resend this invoice. That's what a lot of people do as their statement is you just, you can select all and just resend. So there is that option instead of doing actual, full statements of account. The one thing that is, with statements is, as you can see now that I come back to the screen again, all those ones that I generated are gone. So there aren't saved copies of the statements that you create and send out like there are with your sent invoices. I mean, every invoice you've ever sent in TimeSolv is saved essentially, unless you void it and void it to draft. So, okay, questions on our statement preview? Okay. And for the question about, I will confirm whether the one-time payment over here, I need to select the single charge for credit card or ACH. I will double check to see if that is available for people who are on LawPay as well. And I know that there is an issue that when you have in the Q&A about your LawPay settings, it sounds like you're having some specific issues. So I will follow up with the big answer in the email I send everybody, and then specifically Heather, to you, who is asking that question about your LawPay setup and the ticket that should be out there. Any other questions before we roll here? Okay, so let's take a look. Our next Wednesday webinar will be, as we get out the handy calendar here, right? October 13th, second Wednesday of the month. So I hope everybody has a great rest of their September. Enjoy what here in Minnesota, this is like probably the best, September, October are the best months of the year living in the state, I truly believe. Just gorgeous weather. Hope everyone enjoys their fall weather. It's cooler, hopefully. I'm hoping for everybody who might have gone through a scorching summer. Hopefully drier for those of you that may have gotten drenched if you're out on the East Coast in the last week or so. I just wish everyone health and happiness. So thank you all so much for your time today. I will send out an email with a link so you can watch this at your convenience. And I appreciate you all taking time here to chat with us at TimeSolv. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.